Yeah, I guess it depends on the circumstances. Yeah, self-awareness is a big part of it. Some people are better off led. Better for them, better for you, better for everyone involved. Not everyone, obviously. And it's not a case of controlling people against their will, but some people are just better off led. They're better off being led. But obviously it depends what kind of a leader you are and where you want to lead them, doesn't it? What's the intention of the leader? Often it's not beneficial for the other person. Often it's selfish. Not always. Enlightened leadership is always best. And enlightening leadership. Where are we headed as a collective? That's an interesting thought, isn't it? Where are we headed? Where are we being led? Ideally, yes. That's enlightened leadership. That's the aim. But enlightened leadership it requires a very specific kind of strategy. And given the nature of the ego, enlightened leadership needs to be aware that the ego is constantly diverting away from enlightenment. So how do you lead someone towards enlightenment while their ego is leading them astray? Is a difficult question, and it's one that requires, like I say, a very specific kind of strategy. And actually, it's a strategy that's unlimited. Depending on the individual, there's no limits to what kind of strategy you can employ. Yeah, the end point, it's funny, because the end point is the starting point, funnily enough. But, you know, the ego thinks it's on a journey. So very often you have to keep the ego in check and entertained within a sustained boundary of safety and cultivation, so that essentially you convince the ego to walk around in a circle so it doesn't go anywhere, but it's quite happy because it's entertained by the journey that it thinks it's on. Meanwhile, the energy of enlightenment is being cultivated, which burns through the ego eventually. But then the ego has problems with that along the way too. The energy of enlightenment consumes the ego, and if the ego is strong, it can struggle against letting go, but suffering is always the result of that. So, more often than not, it's forced to let go. Like standing up against a tidal wave, which is good, ultimately. It's good for the end result, but it can make the current circumstances challenging, to say the least. Egos are very twitchy. They don't like to sit still. So you give it exercise, It's like doing burpees or jumping jacks. You're not going anywhere, running on the spot. Entertain yourself, keep yourself occupied, keep yourself happy, keep your ego happy as best you can, while you cultivate its destruction, which is why the masterful strategy of occult means hidden. The best way to kill that ego is in a way that it's unaware of, which is where a good guide or teacher or leader would employ those means. Cold water plunge. Okay, so yeah, alright. You took down your streaming equipment. You're going to put all of yourself into not achieving your goals, but the things which have held you back. So you're going to start addressing the things that have held you back. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, well, that's a good idea. That's a good enough goal in and of itself. You'll probably find addressing the things that have been holding you back will propel you forward towards maybe unknown goals. One of the things we don't realize when we set goals for ourselves is, and this can cause a lot of people issues if they get too attached to the goal, is, okay, set goals and objectives, that's fine, but in the path of, call it self-development, if you want self-mastery, you evolve. Your mind evolves, not your psychology, but your whole spirit of your experience evolves. It's almost like you become a new being. And so you will see the goals that you once had, you will see them with a different light. And so you evolve. So, sometimes you just let go of previous goals and objectives. Otherwise, you can limit yourself by getting stuck in the way you used to think. You just let go, you move on, you give yourself new goals and objectives. Peace is the key. It's all about peace. That's the key. That's the ultimate goal. If you have peace, you can go anywhere from there, and you can let go anywhere from there, and you'll always return to peace, or you'll maintain peace. So, where are you at on the core reasons? Are you afraid of moving forward? Are you afraid of risk? Are you fearful of failure? What is it? What's the core? What are you aware of? If you had to explain to me what the core is, as you say there. Well, with regards to peace, it's important to be clear on essentially the two types of peace, one being absolute and one being conditioned, or unconditioned and conditioned, or absolute peace and relative peace. Relative peace is circumstantial. That's when your body, for most people, it's when your body's healthy, you've got money, your bills are paid, got good relationships. The general type of thing that most people aim for is to have everything in order. And, when everything's in order, you'll have a sense of peace, happiness, contentment. But if one of those things gets affected negatively, that peace tends to be deleted. It's conditional. It's based upon conditions. As long as those conditions are met, you have peace of mind. But there's a much, much, much deeper peace than that, which is the sort of inner peace that spiritual seekers inquire into. So there's a fundamental trauma in the mind. We might as well just dive right into the depths, I suppose. Self-identity, it's called. Self-identity. It's a fundamental trauma in the mind, which means if there is a self-identity, then the peace is the deepest depths of peace is inaccessible where there is a self-identity, because the self-identity blocks that level of peace out. Which is why, to find the deepest kind of peace, you have to transcend the self. That's the ultimate path. That's the ultimate objective of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual inquiry. But that's a very deep kind of peace. Most people aren't interested in that peace. although they might think they are. They spend their whole lives looking in the wrong place, most people, when it comes to that sort of peace. Core things are very basic. Yeah, okay, so it's all kind of circumstantial stuff, isn't it? Sort of stuff you can work on over time. Funny thing about identity, the nature of identity is it's not solid. You don't actually have an identity. It's illusory. That means it's what you think of yourself to be, but that's always changing. People try to grasp at some sort of solid identity, and as the body changes and the personality changes, they lose their grip, because now their self-identity no longer matches the reality that's unfolding. People think of themselves as a father or a mother, and then the children leave home and they're screwed. Or, I'm a successful business owner, and then my business collapses, so what am I now? Etc, etc. So these various forms of identity collapse over the years because they're not real. They're not solid. I am this name, this person, this culture, apparently, but all of that's just conditioning, isn't it? My accent can change. I can change my name. My age changes constantly, second by second in reality. So how old am I exactly? So none of these things can be a real identity. You can play the game with them. Of course, you can conjure your own, but it's not real. It's just a manufactured character. It's a toy. It's a plaything. This week, I'm a streamer on Twitch. Next week, I'm a streamer on YouTube. Am I? I don't know. Whatever I actually am here doesn't know what it is, because what I am aware of is constantly changing and evolving and unfolding. So I cannot know what I am. So my identity, the truest kind of identity you can have, is that one. If you want to get technical with the language, it's an identity of no identity. That's where a lot of the world goes wrong in that sense today. You know, we identify with the body, the name, the gender, the culture, the psychology, the conditioning. But the conditioning changes. It has to. Everything's evolving, so you can't grasp at it. If you grasp at it, you suffer. So yeah, you just learn to evolve without an identity. If you want peace, that is, just let go. Let go and allow the body to move forward, allow the psychology to move forward in life. Looking forward. Well, that's like trying to build a house on top of a broken foundation, gnarly. No matter what house you build, even if you build a house that's very good at wobbling, it's a wobbly house. Nobody wants to come inside a wobbly house, you know. Can't sit still. That's a difficult place to be, dude, because spiritually speaking, if you have a wobbly foundation, you'll go your whole life, potentially, you can go your whole life trying to build a house the same way that everyone else does. But yours will never work, because you've got a wobbly foundation. Which means you've got a very deep problem. That's another way of saying that. And if you've got a very deep problem, you've got to look very deep to solve the problem. Well, or if you've got a wobbly foundation, you can delete the foundation if you want to, which is what deep spiritual inquiry is about. Letting go eradicates karma. So if the foundation of your life is wobbly because of your karma, you can delete the karma and it removes the wobbly foundation. And in the process of that, the trauma of the mind is released and the misery is forgotten. And it sort of resets, and in that example, you would know yourself very deeply, which means you would know exactly what kind of house to build for yourself. What kind of house are you capable of building? In what sense? Observable reminders that remind you of what? That the wobbliness exists, yeah. And the funny thing is, Nolly, it exists for everyone. But some people, they cycle like this, yeah? Those people, it's easy to identify the wobble because it's happening so often. Other people, they wobble like this. For those people, they wobble rarely. They seem to have their shit together for a long time and then it comes crashing down. Other people, it's even bigger. They seem to have everything together for decades, and then there's a wobble, when they get back to the origin. Some people, they can go a whole lifetime and they only wobble right at the end when they're dying, because they forgot that one. They forgot about that bit, They've got their whole life together. They've built up a great kingdom in their physical life, but they ignored that one element of death. And then when that starts to hit home, most of those people end up with dementia anyway, so they're in a different basket. The brain deletes itself before the body is even uninhabitable anymore. Anyway, I think I got a bit off track there, but coming to terms with your own wobbliness is vital if you want peace. I am a wobbly person. It is in my nature to wobble. My psychology is very wobbly, so I must know this about myself. And my options are grasp so tightly at this psychology and try to make it stop wobbling, or accept the wobble, work with the wobble, be a wobbly kind of person, work with my nature. Accept it about myself. Some things can't be changed. Some things can be changed. Or maybe I just build a house on a wobbly foundation and I'm prepared to let it crumble. I have fun building houses on wobbly foundations. It's very challenging. Most people couldn't even attempt it. They wouldn't have the patience. Imagine trying to build a house of cards on a seesaw, yeah? How patient would you have to be to do that? To even attempt it? Slightly crazy, for sure. But you can have a lot of fun doing that, but don't get too attached to it because you're a wobbly kind of person, You just sort of let go, you move on. But yeah, you gotta know yourself, don't you? Some things can be cultivated, like focus and determination and consistency. But it's important to know what's at the core, because I can tell you this, lots of people in my life have accused me of being what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but like undedicated, as if I don't commit myself, uncommitted, as if I don't commit myself to anything, or I don't stick with anything very long. It's like, no, sorry, most of the things that you expect me to be committed to, I just couldn't care less about. Anything that's truly deeply important to me, I'll grab hold of it and I won't put it down. But the things that I do that with, the things that are most meaningful and valuable to me, most people find to be strange, or I don't know, whatever, they have their opinions. But I'm just not interested in most of the things that other people are, so I wouldn't commit myself to 99% of what other people would. But find me something, or give me something truly deeply meaningful, and I'll hold it in my hand for the rest of my life, loving it and caring for it. But I've come to know what those things are about myself, and I've come to accept that I'm more in the 1%. 99% of people are running around trying to grab onto things that I find meaningless. And so I don't bother trying to do that. Why would I? I'm not interested in those things. But society will try to convince you that you should be sometimes, that you're wrong. Anyway, probably going a bit off track there. That's an interesting place to be. So are you connected to your core then? If I need to move through the eye of the storm, this means I recognize my absolute need to move on. And so if this is the case, and maybe I've tested this and maybe I've faltered in the past by pretending and trying to play the game, but actually it always comes back to this. I don't want to be in this situation. I want to move on deeply. Then I have to be very determined in saying to everything and everyone, sorry, my life isn't about you, your opinions or your views. I've come back to this very concrete awareness in myself that I need to be doing this particular thing. And so I'm not wobbling now. I was wobbling before because I was doubting that. Am I here? Am I there? Should I be here? Should I be going there? They say I should be doing this. The government wants me to do this. So I'm wobbling all over the place. But if I've wobbled enough and I've come back to this core, I know what I need to do. Now I need to learn courage, strength, determination, focus as well, because I was wobbly, so it's easy for me to get pulled off track. So I must remember my core. That's what this is in Zen Buddhism. This meditation. This really means be here. But if you've come to that place, well, now you learn to live here, and you feed this. Feed it every day. Feed it. Feed this core. Feed this deepest need within yourself. And doing that, if you do that, you're actually on the spiritual path. Because that's your, call that your highest mind. That's where you need to be. Because it's coming from deep within you. And it's something that you can't get away from. Very often we try to distract ourselves away from that, or we just allow ourselves to be distracted. But when the distraction is said and done, the game is played, like switching the video game off at the end of the day, you're still there, you always return to you. So if it's there and it's at your core, that's where you need to be looking when it comes to spirituality. It's all within you, and you know that, and we've all heard that before. Sometimes it's just difficult to discern. We get easily distracted or confused, which is part of the process. These minds are very, very open things, they like to be everywhere. They like to know everything. They're so interested in all of the elements of life. Streaming can be a distraction, for sure. Anything can be. Anything can be a distraction. But it's only a distraction if there's something else you need to be looking at, if there's something deep and And then these other things come along, they will distract you. Oh, interesting. Yes, that happens sometimes, doesn't it? Life happens around you and forces you into consciousness. It's wise to listen to those circumstances. We call them signposts. You get signs, you get messages, you get little hints along the way. And if you don't listen very often, you end up running over the edge of a cliff. You know, the warning was there: stop, redirect, go in a different direction, don't keep going that way. And often we don't listen, we run off the edge of a cliff. But life has a way of just bringing us around eventually anyway, through suffering or circumstance. It's one of the things about this path, self-mastery. You have to know yourself. Ah, interesting. So you became very productive when you weren't streaming. Yeah, what you want to be doing deeply has a resonance to it. It's imbued with energy. It's imbued with life and passion. That's how you know it's right. Yeah, when your internet broke, you were very productive. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that's a good sign for you, isn't it? The funny thing about this life is, though, you know, there really aren't any rules. You have the right to do whatever you want, but it's also a fact that there are shallow wants and there are deep wants. And so the wisest look to the depths. They look to know the depths. Because the shallow shit comes and goes like trend and fashion. And, you know, what do they call it? The vogue, don't they, of society. The latest trend. All that shit comes and goes. But there's a fundamental core that's unchanging. That's what gets reincarnated, by the way, when you die. That core element is what carries over, which is why to find peace, spiritual enlightenment, you have to address the core. If you get too caught up in the shit, well, you don't address the core, and so that isn't resolved, that core trauma, if you want to call it that. You just get reborn with the same issues. So you have to look to the core if you want peace. The core's really simple too. It's really simple to address. Not easy by any means, but simple. It's so simple that we overcomplicate it. I really like this song. No worries, Gnarly. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for chatting. Yeah, cool. I'll just be hanging out here quietly for a bit. Yeah. Well, you're in the Discord, aren't you? That'll do for now. See you later, Nolly, if you're still around. Same time tomorrow, no doubt.